You don't even need a war to have volatility in pricing. So companies that use fossil fuels know that. But when it, jumps 2-3 times without any clear understanding when it's going to resolve itself, for a company, that's, make or break. You can go under in those situations. Companies that are highly exposed to that volatility, they're at a very high risk today. So it highlights that, can you guarantee that those events will not happen again? So, they're almost certainly guaranteed to happen again. So how do you protect yourself and your company and your societies from that happening? Is that you make sure that you have, just in terms of anything, food supply or anything, you want to make sure that you're self-sufficient. And there's no better way to do that than having the resources that are available to you to keep you going. And clean tech essentially is that. If you strip away everything, it's essentially local energy as much as you can get.
Still not really all the time there. So what is facing this problem with?
The core essence of it is that solar and wind are available. The technology is there. It's cheaper now to produce an electron from the sun or from the wind than to produce that same electron from fossil fuels, from most fossil fuels. But the problem is that you can't turn it on and off. When there's sun, there's sun. When there's wind, there's wind. So you need a lot of storage capacity to be able to store it. So that's why now that the wave of kind of technology validation for solar and wind is passed, now it's up to kind of how do we store all this energy and how do we balance it? Back to what we do, essentially we're like a giant toaster with a lid on top. So that we're toasting a lot of salt, basically, to very high temperatures. We don't let the energy go. We keep it contained. And essentially, that energy you can hold for like days and weeks and then send it out as either heat. If, let's say you're an industry that's burning a lot of fossil fuels, you want an alternative, then you can use our system to generate the same heat without burning anything. And how it ties back to renewables is that, think of it as you have fossil fuels on one hand, and then you have a solution that has to include low-cost wind or solar and a storage medium. So when you combine the two, then you can produce the same energy and the same, let's say, flexibility to press the button or not as fossil fuels.
Hi, and welcome back to New World in the Making, the podcast where we question the systems that we come from, try to make sense of the world that we're living in right now, and look into what's emerging. Today, I am talking with Rayan Kassis, CEO and co-founder of AED Energy. They've developed thermal battery systems that store electricity as heat and deliver 6 to 32 hours of clean power, 10 times cheaper than lithium batteries. Rayan and his team are deploying these systems and are really proving that renewables can actually work, and at scale, 24/7. We talk about the bottlenecks, the resistance from the old energy system, and what it takes to accelerate this transition. And we also dive into the current moment in the Middle East and how our dependence on oil is very fragile and how decentralized energy systems could fundamentally shift power. This is really about bringing innovation down to reality and showing what's possible when we start building. So let's dive in. Rayan, thank you so much for being here today. It's really an honor.
Thank you for having me.
Before we go into the energy transition and all what you're working on right now, which is a lot, can you maybe explain a bit, how did you get where you are today, and what is your background?
Well, I guess it's a bit of a journey that often didn't make sense at parts of it, but at the end kind of all come together.
Yeah.
But the common theme is I've been in energy from day one. When I started with GE, I was working on gas turbines, which was considered clean energy at the time. And I did that for 10 years, both on the application engineering side and then on the project side. And then in 2009, moved over to wind. Now you have to remember that wind at the time was well, at least when I started my career, none of this existed, like wind
Yeah.
and solar. It was like nice concepts.
Nice
Maybe
idea.
some Danish companies were like building
Mhm.
some wind turbines, but it wasn't really serious.
Huh.
And we were actually dismissive of it
Oh,
until around around the time when I jumped ship. There was already a lot of traction happening in
yeah.
Europe. A lot of projects were being built. You can actually see the wind turbines; they were iconic. And my job at Wind with a Danish company, Vestas, one of the largest at the time, still is a major player. They essentially wanted me to translate what this equipment was to customers who were used to just pressing the button, and they had energy. So now you have to explain, no, there's a clean way to do it, and it's economical, but it's not going to be running all the time. So that was a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine that.
But I guess what it meant to me was that I went from being a solutions provider to being part of the solution provider.
Yeah.
Uh, Because you press the button, you have fuel, you turn it off when you don't need it. And then all of a sudden you have a nice solution, it's clean, but it's not, you need something else.
Yeah.
So that was, I guess, in a way that makes the mind start to think, well, what are the solutions? How do I come back to what I used to provide, like which
Yes.
is 100% energy?
Mm.
And kind of why we formed the company
Yeah.
is that after Wind, I joined a technology group called Concentrated Solar Technology.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you or your viewers have seen them, but they're these iconic projects. A lot of them are in Spain, or in Chile, or some parts of the US, where you have very high intensity sun, and you're able to produce electricity during the day through steam generation. But you're also able to heat salt,
Yeah.
molten salt, and then store that so that you can use it in the evening. So for me, that was, at the time, that was the only clean solution that was kind of
Hold on.
dispatchable,
Yeah.
back to the essence. So, but those are very complicated systems.
Right.
So when we formed the company, like, I guess 7 years later,
Uh-huh.
we took the same basis that you can actually use low cost materials to store that energy. Um, and that's what we're doing now, but in a much more simpler format.
Okay. So wait. So then can you maybe go into that? How does your energy solution work, and how does it fix well, also first, I guess, maybe can you explain the problem that we usually have with renewables? You were already mentioning, like, yeah, we press a button with the wind and then it's still not really all the time there. So what is missing in the renewable energy transition? Like, what is it that we are always facing this problem with them, and what is your solution?
Well, the core essence of it is that
Mm,
solar and wind
yeah.
are they're widely available. The technology's there. It's
Right.
cheaper now to produce an
Okay.
electron from the sun or
Yeah.
from the wind than to produce that same electron from fossil fuels, from most
Hmm.
fossil fuels. So wind and solar are cheap, and the banks like them, meaning that you can finance them. But the problem is that you can't turn it on and off. When there's sun, there's sun. When there's wind, there's wind. So you need a lot of storage capacity
Hmm.
to be able to store it. So that's why there's now that the wave of kind of technology validation for solar and wind is passed. Now it's up to kind of how do we store all this energy and how do we balance it.
Yeah.
And then going back to what we do,
Yeah.
we have essentially we're like a giant toaster
Uh-huh.
with a lid on top. So
Yeah.
we're toasting a lot of salt basically to very
Hmm.
high temperatures.
Hmm.
But we don't let the energy go. We keep it contained,
Right.
and essentially that energy you can hold for like days and weeks.
Yes.
and then send it out as either heat. If let's say you're an industry that's burning a lot of fossil fuels, and you want an alternative, then you can use our system to generate the same heat without burning anything. But
Mm.
but how it ties back to renewables is that, think of it as you have fossil fuels on one hand,
Yeah.
and then you have a solution that has to include low cost wind or solar and a storage medium. So when you combine the two, then you can produce the same energy and the same, let's say, flexibility to press the button or not as fossil fuels.
That's so fascinating, and it's so exciting to hear that. Can you explain why are we not seeing this everywhere if it's that straightforward and quite simple? Because it's salt, and salt we can find everywhere, right? Why do we still have lithium batteries? Why is rare minerals still a thing? What's going on there?
Well, there's two things there. On the electricity side, because the energy we consume is in two ways, okay?
Okay.
There's electricity for lights, for household stuff, for keeping everything moving, electrifying everything. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's the heat side. Now, the heat side is the invisible side of the energy equation, because heat actually is all around you. Everything that you see in your room, your house, most of it's been produced using a lot of heat.
Right.
Whether you're in the mining or producing plastics or paper or
Mm.
generating food, or you know just household items, you'd be
Everything.
astonished. You'd be completely astonished to understand that even a glass of milk, something's been burnt
Right.
and into the atmosphere to produce it.
Right.
And the reason why I'm mentioning this is that there's two things there. The electricity side, okay, I mean, there are no real excuses to decarbonize electricity other than that. Well, there are excuses, land usage, long timelines. Some countries simply don't have enough solar and wind, so they have to think, how do they provide their populations with good solutions? And some other countries, they have interconnections with everything. But from a technology point of view, like a pure technology point of view,
Yeah.
you can electrify pretty much everything.
Crazy.
From a heat point of view, it becomes
Mm.
tricky, because heat to produce heat,
Yeah.
you're using the same fuels,
Uh-huh.
with the only difference that you're not using other machinery to produce electricity. So it's much simpler. All you have to do is ignite it, and you generate heat. And what does that mean? It means that it's very low cost.
Yeah.
And that's why it's very hard to decarbonize heat, because you're in a very competitive environment. People have been used to a very low cost basis, and
Mm.
there's simply no technologies until now, like with thermal batteries and
Yeah.
other solutions, on uh, how to how to generate that heat without companies going bankrupt, because
Right.
it's expensive. So it's a big challenge, and it's something that we're working on directly to kind
Right.
of figure out how do you take advantage of all this cheap solar and wind, and then store it as heat, and then deliver it as heat, so that we can produce coffee mugs, and you can produce phones, and you
Everything.
know the fill up your refrigerator, and all that stuff.
Crazy. And then why are we still having lithium batteries, for instance? Why do we still use them?
That's a good question. They're cheap. There's a big industry behind them,
Okay.
and the Chinese have really drove down their costs by having this mass manufacturing model.
Mm-hmm.
So lithium ion has a role to play.
Okay.
You can argue that lithium is, on the face of it, if you combine lithium's pros and cons and, let's say, fossil fuels pros and cons, lithium far outweighs fossil fuels in terms of environmental impact and hazard.
Yeah.
It doesn't have it has its challenges,
Yeah.
but in this world that we live in, uh, cost and cost and profitability kind of over
Yeah.
balance anything else. So I
Yeah.
could sit there and talk about mining, the ethics of mining and the
Yeah.
supply chains and all of that. I could talk
Yeah.
about that, but it's not
Yeah.
going to make any difference
Yeah.
because people they're at their essence, they're competitive creatures and
Mm.
organizations. Meaning that if I am going to do, if I'm generate, I'm doing something that needs a lot of electricity, and you hold yourself, you compete on the lowest acceptable, how do I say this, ethical basis.
Uh-huh.
That's the benchmark. You don't compete if you're here on the ethical standards and
Yeah.
your competitor is here but has a much lower cost.
Right.
And I want to be careful here because I don't want to be seen as like pushing lithium ion out because it does have a role. But
Yeah.
people have to really seriously think hard. If the argument 5 years ago was mining operations and dependence, on very complex supply chains, when lithium ion cost was like 3 times more than it is now,
Yeah.
those arguments are still there. Just
Yeah.
because lithium ion costs went down, dramatically,
Doesn't.
th-
Yeah.
those arguments are, haven't changed.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why lithium ion is here,
Right.
and it's here to stay for a lot of applications.
Okay. But I mean, like your solution could substitute that. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
for
I
now.
don't think we're directly competing with lithium
Okay.
because lithium you can't produce heat, for example.
Yeah.
So lithium ion, we do directly compete with them uh, in our power mode because our system, it can produce heat, but it can also produce electricity.
Yes.
So we do compete with them, and
Yeah.
we have, but it's only in applications where the customer wants both
Power.
electricity and heat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, yeah, we do compete with them, but how do they get their heat? Lithium ion can't do that. So it's a kind of a gray area.
Right. I mean, you're basically having two solutions for one, and lithium
Yeah,
ion one, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
okay. Okay. Um. So I mean, technically, then we could totally have a full-on renewable energy system, right?
hmm
Okay. So what is inhibiting? You were already mentioning the price. Um, what is inhibiting the whole energy system to already see way more transformation into renewables? I mean, when we were talking and prepping this call, you were also mentioning the fact that into the whole renewable sector, there has been less financing now also. Can you explain what's going on really in the sector and why are we still so much dependent on the fossil fuel industry?
Well, of course, cost is a big
Mm.
factor.
Yeah.
And let's say pre-current U.S. administration, the
Mhm.
focus has been to electrify in a lot of sectors. It still is, absolutely.
Right. Right.
But for these projects to happen, you need the private sector,
Mm-hmm.
essentially,
Mm.
because for many reasons, I mean, public sector is not going to efficiently, secure permits, get projects going, So in most countries, well, in like let's say Europe, North America, um, lots of Asia, they've
Mm.
privatized generation so that you go and get a permit and you produce electricity and there's a whole system for that.
Yeah.
Now the essential uh the dangers of this when you combine something that depends on regulations,
Mhm.
the danger the killer of this industry is when you have policy changes
Mm,
and that make projects that were like done deals and the
yeah.
banks all committed for them. Those projects become like their regulatory basis has been pulled under their feet,
Mm,
and that is a deal breaker. So, and I'm not just saying today. Like, I'll give you an example. In the financial crisis in 2008,
yeah.
a lot of European countries who were really eager to sign these wind and solar deals back when wind and solar were expensive,
Mm,
all of a sudden they didn't have, you know, they couldn't afford it.
wow.
So they backtracked on the tariffs that investors relied on.
Yeah.
So a good example now is like in Spain,
Yeah.
you know, companies. I don't want to pick on Spain, but because
Yeah.
a lot of European countries did that, they canceled the tariffs, and what that the signal to investors was that I'm not going to invest in the future in any
Mm,
project
it's
that
too right.
relies on the regulation. And I think the regulators now learned the lessons, and there's a lot of like back and forth on, how to basically say sorry and let's move on. But that is happening again now with the U.S.,
Mm,
where they're canceling the fundamental basis of a lot of projects happening. And you have to remember, these projects take like 2 to 3 years to develop.
yeah.
And people invest like millions of dollars to do permitting, do environmental impact
Mm,
assessments, get all the grid connectivity frameworks done. So it takes a lot of funding and and then you base it on the fact that there's some sort of clear regulatory pathway to get you to where you want to be.
yeah.
So that's the problem. I mean, it's actually been insane where, and I know there's like lawsuits and everything, but where the U.S.
Wow.
in this instance, the U.S. administration has
Mm,
moved to cancel projects that are already under construction. And that is crazy. I mean, that is from a project finance point of view. There is no better way. It's like a hit job on an industry.
yeah.
So that will certainly affect. I was just reading today, like solar and wind are still going in the U.S., but they're down by like 20%
Yeah.
because you're an investor. It's like investing in a startup or investing in a project. You're
Yeah.
like, I want to make sure that things move on.
Of course. Of course. No, it totally makes sense. Yeah. Obviously. I mean, also, what I always have my problem to wrap my head around is when renewables are going to be everywhere and we have solutions like yours, and then where do energy companies still make a profit? How do they make a profit if it's essentially free energy and you're just paying for the whole infrastructure to be built once, but then after that, that's about it, right?
Well, they have to adapt. They have to become renewable energy companies. You know.
Right. But I mean, isn't that also then decentralized, way more decentralized in possibilities of energy? So it's going to be way harder to then profit from that, no?
I mean, I don't really see it that way.
Okay.
You, unless you're talking about the resources themselves. So the
Mhm.
companies that are actually have invested billions and billions and billions to pull those fossil fuels out of the ground and then sell
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So at the source, yeah, if decarbonization happens overnight, then they're not in a good shape.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
You know. So you've seen like a lot of the oil and gas companies like focus on how they can have a stake in the clean tech offtake system, so that
Mm.
they can transition to that.
Yeah.
And a lot of energy companies today have, like I've seen in the span of past 10, 15 years, companies moved from being completely fossil fuel to completely renewable energy.
Yeah.
So so companies adapt, and if you're in the sector, the skill sets you need, they're pretty much transferable. Um, you know,
Yeah.
from having oil and gas installations to having clean tech installations. I mean, on the electrical side, so yeah, people adapt.
Mm. But okay, but then like isn't like solar energy or wind energy by itself just free energy? Like it's like sun is just coming into like the
Yeah.
sun, So I mean, where do these companies make money? Like just if you're
Well,
gonna
it's
have
not. It's free. It's free energy. If it's free raw energy, but you have to convert it.
Mhm. Yes,
So
okay.
that
Okay.
conversion process, you need expertise, equipment, and all that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like fossil fuels. Fossil fuels essentially is free, but
Mhm.
you have to go get it. And
Yes, okay.
so once you get it, then you can start charging people, because
Mm.
essentially you're paying them to go and dig it out of the earth, refine
Yeah.
it, packaging it up for you, transporting it, putting it into the your favorite mode of consumption, and then you buy it. So
Right.
essentially you paid them to do all that work for you.
Okay.
It's the
Okay.
same thing with renewables. You're paying someone to go and get that wind and convert it to electricity, which can go and charge your vehicle or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Talking about getting that oil and this current moment that we're living through. Um, can you explain or share maybe your point of view of what is going on in the world right now with maybe Venezuela, Iran trying to get oil? What's your take on all this?
I mean, it's chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take, and unfortunately, it has, unfortunately for the world, but fortunately for clean tech companies, it has. Uh, there's no better way to highlight, why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because you can't rely on oil and gas. We don't see the complexity, but it is a massively complex system.
Mm-hmm.
Where uh, geopolitical risks, volatility in pricing. You don't even need a war to have volatility in pricing. So companies that use fossil fuels know that.
Yeah.
But when it, jumps 2 3 times without any clear understanding when that's going to resolve itself, for a
Mm-hmm.
company, that's make or break. You can go under in those
Yeah.
situations. Companies that are highly exposed to that volatility, they're
Mm.
at a very high risk today. So it highlights that, would you, you know, can you guarantee that those events will not happen again? Absolutely not. They're almost certainly guaranteed to happen again. So how do you protect yourself and your company and your societies from that happening? Is that you make sure that you have, your, just in terms of anything, food supply or anything, you want to make sure that you're self-sufficient. And there's no better way to do that than having the resources that are available to you
Mm.
to keep you going. And clean tech essentially is that. If you strip away everything, it's essentially local energy as much as you can get. It's things that you don't have to import. Whether it's wave energy or wind or solar or geothermal, that's the
Mm.
fundamental essence of it. If you strip off all the ideology or the environmental aspects, it is local energy that uh, that we're able to harness today.
Mm.
There's no technology pathway that is not available to us.
Yeah.
And there's so much progress has been made in the past 15 years. A lot of progress is still being made, and people are tackling every way to convert something to energy.
Yeah.
So so that goes back to, that's the fundamental, my take on these crisis situations, is that it really reminds you that you need energy security at the end of the
Yeah.
day, as like a the difference between if you succeed or not.
Mm-hmm. And how do we go into that direction more and more? I mean, all these events are showing this, but like, how are we then really moving into that direction? What can we do?
I think we've been moving in that direction. The trend has been clear.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I mean, look, the trigger for all of this decarbonization and the thing that really helped wind and solar was
Yeah.
that regulation came behind it. So
Mm-hmm.
we take it for granted now that we have all this wind and solar,
Yeah.
and that you can get a electricity bill that's 100% renewable.
Yeah.
That's normal. That's our normal expectations of today's like society. But how we got there was that the regulators, uh, woke up and smelled the coffee, and they were like, we need to make sure that if these technologies, need extra push or extra incentives, let's put it towards them, and that that spawned a revolution in terms
Mm,
of the energy systems
mm,
themselves, fundamentally.
yeah.
So that sustained regulatory urgency is
Yeah.
extremely important. And that's how we continue that revolution,
Yeah.
let's say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because there are technologies that are coming up, like, for example, ourselves, other thermal
Mm-hmm.
batteries, other
Yeah.
technologies that look at different things. And
Mm-hmm.
we, uh, we won't survive if there's no regulatory, like, tailwinds. I mean, some of us
Right.
may, some of us not, but in general, the sector needs that kind of sustained regulatory tailwind. And I have to
Mm-hmm.
say, in the EU has been a lot better than others. I mean, they've put in
Okay.
some really good policies so far on heat and on electrification.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how far away are we from, like I read one of your posts recently that also you grew up also having not constantly supply of electricity. How is the reality globally speaking? Because I think also something that we talked about, that we are usually not really connected to reality of where we are globally.
Yeah, yeah, it is. We take it for granted,
Mm,
and I was privileged to be able to have the means to solve my problems
mm,
when the grid couldn't
mm.
help me solve my problems. Doesn't mean I didn't learn the lesson. Of course, I learned the lesson, but I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Uh, from my days building uh, gas turbines.
Uh-huh.
We would build it in, let's say, in Nigeria,
Yes.
uh, big power plant that's going to be connected to a big grid and go somewhere else.
Yes.
And you're on a project site, and in the evening, you go back to the kind of the camp, which we rent
Mm.
from the locals, and there's no electricity. You turn on the diesel generator to be able to get your internet and to keep you going.
Right.
So they're living next to a power plant, but they don't actually have electricity.
That's crazy.
That's the reality in many parts of the world. Of course, now you go to that
Mm,
same place in Nigeria, they might
mm,
have a solar panel, you know?
mm.
Maybe they don't have all the solution, but they have something, you know?
Yeah.
Those kind of decentralized the
Mm,
technologies that help you get going,
yeah.
are starting to be everywhere now.
Mm,
So the reality on the ground is much of the world is still dark, you know,
yeah.
because they're not connected, because it's not easy to connect in many places.
Mm,
Um, so, but there's technologies to kind of push us towards being able to have what everyone else has.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, are you seeing then the decentralization as where we're going forward?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think decentralization couldn't work before because it was all fossil fuel based. And fossil fuel
Mm-hmm.
based, you need to transport the fuel, you need to buy the equipment, you need to set up the systems, and that's the world is it's a small place, but it's also a very large place,
Yeah.
and those systems cost money and
Mm.
funding.
And yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but now the reason why decentralization is possible because you have solar panels and uh, you know local grid systems and batteries,
Mm.
and you can produce anything you want completely locally.
Yeah.
The only thing
And
that would prevent it is in kind of lower income places where the government still supplies electricity and they haven't
okay.
figured out how to regulate those off grid.
Uh-huh.
So
Be- because like your units, could they also be come in like smaller kind of ways to
like
also do.
residential,
Yeah, exactly. Is that also a possibility?
it could be,
Okay.
but probably like at the community level, we could probably
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
install something, or small industry, certainly small industry,
Yeah.
where right now a lot of industries are relying on whatever they can get their hands on
Yeah.
for both their heat and their electricity.
Yeah.
I mean, something I need to say as well is that we tend to see like the global south, emerging markets, whatever you want to call them,
Mm.
as uh, energy, where energy access is severely limited. You can say it is, but their renewables has been booming. Like
Mm.
their energy, the increases in energy usage in the global south has far outstripped Europe and, well, I don't want to say the US. I need to check the latest numbers, but far outstripping Europe, which means that they are actually buying, installing energy because they're
Wow.
growing. So their
Wow.
industries don't stop, and
Yeah.
they're big purchasers of equipment and systems.
Yeah.
They have economies to run. They have goods to
Yeah.
produce, and this is where a lot of the solutions that are coming online can really help them be self-sufficient.
Mm. Wow. And now with your solution with AED Energy, where are you going? What's your next move? Where do you want to grow? Into what direction? Can you share a bit?
Well, we first have to get certified. So we're in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of that process. And it sounds like it's kind of a mysterious process, but essentially what it does is it validates, uh, I don't want to say what we know. Well, we know our technology, but
Yeah.
it's like other third-party institutions that the banks and the insurers know and trust, to come
Yeah.
and say, look, we've looked at their system, they've been operating for X amount of time,
Yeah.
and they're good to go. So we're in the process of doing that, and we're working with one of the best companies in the world that does that.
Okay.
So that's our current focus. But in terms of market uses, we're talking
Mm-hmm.
to all sorts of customers and use cases.
Mm-hmm.
It can go from being an airport catering company that has their own on-site
Wow.
generators that use gas for their steam purposes, and they don't want to do that anymore, to kind of a platinum mine in Africa that is burning coal because they don't have any alternative, and they're desperate to be able to use our systems. So there's a wide variety of applications that
Mm.
are just now coming into the picture.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to the regulatory side.
Yeah.
Is some of it is being driven by regulations.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you one example. In the EU, they have a regulation that's that's law that's coming into the picture this year.
Okay.
It's CBAM, and essentially at the core of it is it's a protectionist policy.
Okay.
So European manufacturers complained for a long time that you had all these importers of steel products and everything from countries that didn't have the same environmental regulations, so their cost basis was lower. So
Mm,
what happened was the EU introduced regulation that said that if you're importing stuff that has a very high heat content that's polluting, then you have to comply with the same level as the European companies.
right.
Otherwise, you'll get tariffs.
Yeah.
And that has resulted in a lot of knocks on our door. I can say that.
Mm, that's amazing. That's really good news.
So going back to the regulation and how that's
Yeah.
important, it is
Yeah.
extremely important.
It is. It is. And because, like I know that in Spain especially, but I mean I think all over Europe, we have these negative prices inside of the energy grid, no? Like how the energy grid regulates the prices of the electricity we receive. And when there is too much energy, like there is the negative energy prices. How would your solution not also fix that kind of problem, that we wouldn't have maybe too much energy in the grid?
Yeah, I mean that's an excellent question. And this is something that they've been looking at with the heat auctions and other policies in the EU. Is that how do you kind of balance that
Yeah.
imbalance so that
Mhm.
so that the peaks are kind of flattened.
Yeah.
Um, so essentially, that's where energy storage comes into play. We're like a big
Yeah.
sponge, both in terms of the energy, but also to kind of in terms of the prices.
Hmm.
So that's why it's super important.
Yeah.
And it's not something new. It's actually being looked at the
Okay.
policy level.
Okay. And so why is it taking so long? Like why not already it having in place? Like,
Well, I mean, you should look at it in terms of the glass half full, not
hmm.
glass half
Okay.
empty.
No, that's a
Uh,
good point. Yes.
we have a lot of renewable energy now
Yeah.
online,
Exactly.
and that is for everything that we've spoken about. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
there are a lot of projects. It's normal to see wind turbines in Germany and in Spain and in France. It's not a big deal, and that is
Yeah.
actually part of the system. There's a lot of solar capacity. There
Yeah.
are companies looking at actually importing solar from North Africa because the resources are cheaper and better there. You know, so there's a lot of interconnecting discussions as well.
Yeah.
So we've done a lot,
Yeah.
uh, but we've reached a stage where you need to continue, but at the same time, you need to start putting a lot of storage capacity.
Mm,
So that's where those discussions are happening now. You know,
yeah.
and actual projects being deployed.
Yeah.
Um, so
So do you see with AI and everything that's happening with like needing more and more energy that is cost efficient, do you see it as a problem or more as a enabler for renewables to be adopted way faster and also having solutions like yours way more available? You know what I mean?
yeah, it's a tough one because it depends on the regulation. You know, it's
Mhm.
concerning to see things happening in the U.S. where it's like you can burn it, you can just generate electricity. You know, you know, with a wink and you know, just go ahead and build it.
Yeah.
You know, as long as they comply to the clean energy standards
Yeah.
and their own environmental policies, then
Uh-huh.
you're okay. The problem is when you start competing on a global level, because
Hmm.
AI and data centers and all that, they compete on the cost of energy. That's the main driver.
Yeah.
So if your cost of energy is low,
Mm.
you know, you're going to be in a better position.
Yeah.
So, so we don't want to create a system where, yeah, okay, we built all these data centers, but we actually went backwards in terms of renewable energy because it's actually polluting the earth a lot more than it was. So there needs to be, unfortunately, it's hard to say that in today's world, but there needs to be a global consensus on what to do.
Okay.
Because the AI data centers consume vastly more energy than the good old fashioned data centers where
Right.
their compute power was much less.
Yeah.
So it's a problem.
Okay. But like renewable energy, isn't that also the tendency is going towards being cheaper every time? So in theory, it could also be kind of making it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, at the macro level, you're right.
Okay.
If you look at what we talked about, the crises and the impact and the volatility,
Yeah.
that from a data center point of view is actually probably more acutely felt because that results in their own security of in terms of having their systems running. So I think that will push for kind of more on the clean tech side.
Right.
Using the available means that you can locally to produce your energy.
So I know it's really, really hard to tell right now because of everything that's going on right now. But yeah, what's your take on the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you think we're gonna be with the energy transition and everything that's happening?
I mean, when I started, there was no wind and solar.
Right.
So when I joined wind, that was just getting started. And when people told us about solar, that's just human nature. We would dismiss solar. We'd be like, they'll never be cheap,
Yeah.
all sorts of problems because we were the wind guys. So, but then look what solar is now. So my hunch is that because of storage availability and because that the sector is still moving forward with a lot of development, the global south has essentially decided that renewable energy that's the way to go,
Okay.
in terms of their own energy security. So I think we're moving towards a modern system. There's a lot of areas where, when I say modern, I mean clean system.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that are that are not clear yet, like
Like what?
aviation,
Okay.
like transport. I mean, EVs work with the infrastructure, but they're not going to work everywhere if you don't have the infrastructure for it. So, but that said, you can deploy that infrastructure. So I think we're moving towards a scenario where definitely renewables is going to be, there's no reason why it can't be more than 50% in the next 10 years.
Okay. Wow.
It's already what, like 18-20% of global electricity, from 1% 20 years ago.
It's
So
amazing.
that's a win, And then once you reach towards like critical mass, then the investment case behind a lot of the fossil fuel assets drops. I mean, think about coal. The coal has been in a steep decline,
Yeah.
for years. It's you can't even think about financing a coal plant anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at some point, that's the same principle will happen with other fuels. That said, there's there's a lot of assets that are probably going to be continued to be used. The thing also that's not clear is that there is going to be a point where if you have much less consumption, what happens to the cost of gas and the cost of fuel? Does it go through the roof because
Mhm.
it's for smaller assets or I don't know. This remains to be seen. But from a
Right.
technology deployment point of view, I think we're
Mm.
heading towards some critical mass.
Yeah. I mean, also, do you see China as one of the big movers into that direction with the EVs and everything that's happening there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's no mistake
Mm.
why. They're a net energy importer unless they produce their own electricity. So
Mm.
they have essentially bet on electrification because they're not blessed with big hydrocarbon resources.
Mm-hmm.
So um, so they're doing it from a survivability point of view, and they've really bet big.
Yeah.
They're still building coal plants there,
Sense. Yeah.
but that's a factor of how much energy they need as a country. You know, it
Yeah.
is it's on a massive industrial scale.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, like, we're right now seeing that with the whole situation in Iran, right? That
mhm.
if if things get even worse for China, it's going to be really, really, really tricky, no? With their whole.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, uh, it's very challenging for anyone that depends on oil coming out of the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but you know, having renewable assets now, kind of softens the blow a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What was your take on? I mean, a bit. This is not really related to energy, but I mean, having your insights on energy and also you have family in the Middle East. What do you think is going to happen there? What's the next move there?
That would be I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean,
Mm,
wars are easy to start, but
mm,
uh there what was it? The Mike Tyson said you always have a plan until you're punched in the nose. Uh so that's that's pretty much what it means is that first of all that
yeah.
the things that you took for granted in terms
Mm,
of macroeconomics of certain countries no longer exists, or they're going to be very hard to replace. You know,
mm,
um, so I'm talking about like the Gulf region and kind of the assumptions that were priced into those economies.
yeah.
Uh, so, and then the other thing is directly related to energy, which we spoke about, which put that energy security um, kind of topic back into number one agenda. And that was, anyways, that should have came back to the agenda. Um, but yeah, it's a tricky situation. It's a tricky situation because it's like a geopolitical system that's been it's kind of like it's like a garden that's been tended specifically to keep like within manageable tension. And then you came and put a bulldozer through that garden, and expecting to have flowers come up, but the flowers aren't coming up because it's been like it's like a it's like a two fault lines that were just papered over for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. No, no, it's yeah, it's crazy. It's yeah, no. We will see where we go from here, no? I guess every day will show. I always ask also in the podcast what has recently surprised you. So besides all what's going on here, what has been something that has recently surprised you in your work? It can be related to life, whatever you feel like.
What's really surprised me is that we're no different than people 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or 5,000 years ago.
Mhm. Interesting.
We have the same kind of we build everything thinking we're the only civilization,
Mm.
and this is our time is the only time, and we have to see it in a positive actually, because without that mentality, you'd never get these the Colosseum. You'd never get the arches. You'd never get these beautiful ruins around the world, because people build for the to make their existence, which they think is their only existence, the best that can be.
Yeah.
So I think that human spirit, I think we should cherish it, because that is why we're gonna get to you know a clean tech
Mm.
world, because you know um, I mean, who doesn't want a modern system? And if you
Yeah.
can do it in your era, which is the most important era in the world, then why shouldn't we do it?
Mm.
So that's the thing I think has I've noted, is that
Mm.
we're no different than previous generations, and we tend to see 100 years from now as being like a million years from now,
Yeah.
but 100 years ago was not a million years ago.
Yeah.
So so that's yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I never thought about that. So what is that thing that is exciting for you to leave here and be that human that wants to build things? What is the next thing for you?
Uh, for me personally, you know, I'd I like technologies that
Mm.
make sense.
Mm.
Meaning, make sense that you can you know replicate the just the beauty of a solar panel over a hut. That's
Mm.
beautiful, you know.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
technologies that are like that, by the way, that you couldn't have imagined before in the past,
Yeah.
but it's happening now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I like to work with teams, and who knows in the future.
That's
You
cool.
know, first we have to get AED Energy going.
Yeah.
But I always like to help other companies and people with good
Mm.
ideas. So anyone listening, just ping me as well.
Amazing. Yeah. Love that. Um, what is a new world in the making for you?
A new world in the making
Mhm.
is a modern energy system, a a world that respects nature, uh, that keeps wildlife, freely flowing,
Mm.
uh, and those two really are the the new world in the making that I wish to see. Those two together.
Mm. And do you see us right going into that direction? It's happening.
I think
It's
in a way, humans have become more city oriented,
mm-hmm. Yes,
so
we
that
have.
frees up a lot of that frees up a lot of land for wildlife.
Right.
So
That's
uh,
good.
so so in a way, accidentally,
Yeah.
we might get there.
Yes.
Not because of our goodwill. I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I hope so. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, from what you were saying earlier about like the being the great human, no, that builds things. Um, by accident, it might actually do things then also that are really in line with what you're saying from that point of view.
yeah, yeah. You need good leaders. That
Okay.
is. You need good leaders uh to harness their ego in a
Uh
good
huh.
way,
Okay. Interesting.
because humans the common thing about humans, we like our systems. regardless
Mhm.
of, a lot of people have been saying, oh, the world order is back to the old, might is right and everything. But that's
Mm,
rubbish. That's only one person who wants his own order.
mm,
Uh, and the reality is that humans are based on the systems. The systems don't
mhm,
exist. Laws don't exist. They're just, but they definitely exist because we create them. We
mm,
write them up. We stamp them. Because it defines on how we operate our operating system. So
mm.
um, so that's why institutions matters. But then good leaders to kind of guide those, persuade the tools, the little cogs in the system to work in one direction. And so I think, I am a big supporter of these policies that, get us in the right direction. Uh,
Okay, so I would love to know more about the leaders, the type of leaders we need, and the systems. Because how are these systems shaped? Are we all shaping them? What are the incentives that are driving them? How do you see them shift if we're quite change averse? How do you see that?
well, we're change averse, but we're also, when the temperature gets hot in the pot, uh,
We
we
need
we
to, yeah, we
we
tend
tend
to
to, yeah, we're
let's
like, you know what? Let's change it so the temperature is not hot. So the same thing happened with, like the Paris agreements, where
yeah,
people were like, you know what? Fine, you're right.
something.
This is not good. This is really not good. We got to do something different.
Yeah,
Um, by the way, we're burning more fossil fuels now than when we signed the Paris Accords in 2015. I'm sorry, but that's not a question. That's not a matter of the percentage has been more renewables, but we didn't have phones, we didn't have TVs, we didn't have PlayStation, we
yeah,
didn't have all, so
AI.
our energy needs have jumped.
Yeah,
Um, so I just killed the whole show basically with that statistic.
it's better. Okay, well, actually, everything you just said,
Everything, just cancel it.
forget about everything.
Forget about it. We're doomed. We're
What are we
completely
doing
doomed.
next?
We are done as a civilization. Just pack your bags.
No, but we will get there, and also with
Yeah.
good leaders. So, what are these leaders? You were already mentioning about egos, less or harnessing the ego in a efficient way. What does it mean?
You know, the old Colosseums
Mm,
are like the big policy papers now.
mm,
People aren't building Colosseums anymore, but
no,
they're signing legislation that has impact for the next 20, 30 years.
mm,
And we're not talking about Alexander the Great or, these warriors. We're talking about people who can articulate well a vision of what these essential policies are going to be and what they're going to lead to, which then gathers, in a democratic system, you gather the parliament or whatever legislative body to sign up to those momentous policy changes. So I
mhm.
think uh, we've seen that happen in the past. I can't pinpoint a single person, but I think the systems that enable it. Um, I'd say especially in Europe, uh,
Yeah.
also in the U.S., but the U.S. is a lot far more divided. Well, Europe is many countries. The U.S. is like states and then two parties that completely hate each other.
Mm,
They don't even speak the same language at all.
yeah.
But still, you get policies like the IRA that transformed a lot of the sector. So yeah, so you need a voice for it, but you also need to kind of you got to see, what are the real priorities over the next 20 years, and what is blocking me from getting to those priorities.
Yeah.
So we're in the tricky era right now, where we're not sure whether there's a new system going to come into place, or that this is just a passing storm, due to this current U.S. administration, and that kind of chaos
Yeah.
is going to subside.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous assumption to make, because things change constantly, over
Yeah.
weeks and months rather than even years.
Yeah.
What my kind of view, and maybe almost a slight hope, is that the European system, uh, get some spine and preserve itself as a place of rules. Don't give in to and I think that helped with the whole Greenland discussion, where they were like, okay, we're not the same actually. So we need to, hold on 1 second.
Calm down.
Yeah, calm down. We're not gonna, there's no point in going there. So let's hold tight. And I think I've felt that in the EU kind of discourse now.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see how that moves throughout the whole, maybe World War III or whatever that might be, or not. We'll see if
At least we'll have decentralized energy in World War III, so we won't have to.
That's really something.
That's something. That's something.
That's something. Maybe suddenly we see a drop in and the Paris Agreement will work finally after all. But we'll see.
Yeah. But I mean, going back to the thing, I mean, we're also living in incredibly interconnected world.
Yeah.
Regardless of all what you hear on the politics, or if you open social media,
Yeah.
and I said that I've been to, let's say, you go to Iraq, or you go to Denmark, or you go to Honduras, the 18, 19-year-old in front of you is going to essentially be the same kind of cultural person. They're exposed to the same stuff. They have the same information. They basically grew up on the same content. Fortunately and unfortunately, I don't know what how it stacks
What
up.
it might be. Yeah.
What it might be. So from that aspect, even though the discourse is like us versus them and people and not, but people kind of understand each other more in a weird kind of way as well.
Yeah.
But we're so we have all of those, and then you have AI and what societal impacts that's going to have.
Yeah.
Things that we're not even really sure. We don't even know what to make of AI still. Is it actually helping me or not? It's definitely helping you in many cases, but what does it mean on a macro level?
Yeah.
You have brightest minds who don't even know. So
where we're going.
Certainly it's going to affect something, but who knows?
Yeah. No, that's why we do the podcast, to really go into those questions. So thanks a lot for raising all these thoughts and questions, and yeah, let's see where we go from here. It's gonna be for sure interesting, and yeah, it's unpredictable, really, right?
Yeah, I guess it's okay to be unpredictable.
Yeah, it's nice to sometimes also let go of control a bit,
Yeah, just we like order, but reality, the world doesn't care about,
No.
it's gonna
No.
keep spinning, and
Yeah. Since we're already asking questions and looking into questions, I always finish the podcast with a question so that the guest leaves a question for the listener. What kind of question would you like to leave?
question to who?
The listeners, so that they can reflect on these questions.
Was that in your questions? Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it was.
Don't worry. Take your time.
So I did read this actually. The reflection in the question, it's actually a reflection,
Okay.
is that don't take anything for granted. Whether it's an idea or innovation or status quo, that almost I'm like a kind of a proof of that, from even just from a basic career point of view, like what was considered like standard, that will never change or might change, but later, just completely transformed. So in the past 10, 15, 20 years, everything from my point of view, from an energy point of view, has completely changed. And that's applicable to many things.
Yeah.
So don't take anything for granted. It's not quite a question, but it's a reflection that I have.
I like that. I like that a lot, especially right now. I think, I think it's a very good, important reflection to have. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was really a pleasure to talk to you. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Oh, thanks, Adriana. That was the war part. I don't have many solutions for that, but
No, I mean, who does, honestly?
yeah. It's just, it's got to stop, I guess. That's the only.
Yeah.
I mean, bombs aren't supposed to be flying from the sky. That's not like a normal human condition, basically.
No, that's not what we're supposed to have on this world. Like,
No.
For sure not. No.
So, it's all action reaction in people's minds, I think.
Yeah.
So that allergic reaction that people have, maybe that's will help in the future.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, if you're forced in any ways to really just survive and make it work somehow, I mean, for sure. We get definitely creative, I guess.
I have another reflection, but you can cut that. Is
Great.
that
No, please.
Get off your phones and go learn to go learn to fish or hike or something, because it's not only good for your soul, but it's also it could be useful in the future. So there's a good side, but there's also a survival side. You don't have to put it there. I just felt like mentioning.
No, but I love it. I do. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you.